Hello there. Are you interested in the quality of your prospective franchise operators? We know that's a rhetorical question, but if you're not, this video and the Franchise Navigator is not for you. Wouldn't you like your existing franchise operators to experience anywhere between 18 and 38% increases in unit volume? Of course you would. We'll show you how. Because we've determined through our research in almost 20 years, there is a better way to recruit, select, and train high-performing franchise operators. We do this through the Franchise Navigator, and we've actually turned it into a predictable science. It's not just a profiling tool. It includes strategy, and it results in incredible results. In fact, we'll show you how to discover the power of how to connect with your operators, your associates, and your employees in ways you never have before. But let's talk about the results. I like to talk about the end, and then we'll talk about how it all happens. One particular company had franchise unit sales increases of 38% in the first 18 months that they deployed the Franchise Navigator. See, the very things that cause success or failure in franchising has nothing to do with franchising. What we found, it has everything to do with people. And once this particular company, which happens to be Sears Holdings, once they started putting the right people into the right positions, they had incredible results. In some cases, our clients experience anywhere between 18 and 22% increases in store sales. What that means is marginal stores all of a sudden become profitable. And the Navigator takes the guesswork out of who will and who will not be a good fit for a particular system. These are actual testimonials from our clients. One client said, "We stopped wasting our valuable time with the wrong candidates." Well, what that meant then was that their recruitment division was spending time with people that could execute the business model and had a chance for success, as opposed to those that didn't have a chance at all. Closing rates for our salespeople are higher. We are closing more deals faster than ever before. And we'll show you exactly why that happens. The Navigator stopped the bleeding. In this particular case, this company in the service/retail industry had over 400 locations and was actually in atrophy. They were going backwards. They were closing more stores than they were opening because they were selling a lot of franchises to the wrong people. 36 to 40% of all inbound candidates are immediately disqualified because they don't fit the profile behind the science of the Navigator. Why spend time with people who just aren't a good fit? Well, we currently have over 150 brands, many of which you'll recognize, and it ranges from very, very small emerging brands to very large, sophisticated companies such as Regis, Ace Hardware, Sears, and many others. Well, what we've learned is that franchising is all about people doing business with people. It doesn't matter how great your business model is. It doesn't matter how great your products or services are. If you don't have the right people delivering those products or services to the end user, it's not going to work. It's also all about you and the candidates you attract. And I can tell you, having done this now for the last 20 years and 40 years in franchising, that the mistake a lot of companies make is they cast a very wide net in their lead generation, and then they try to pluck from that net the fish that are the most appropriate for their particular brand. Well, you know what? Today it's far too expensive and time-consuming to do that. There's more franchisors out there than ever before, and they're all vying for the same candidate. And it's all about how well you know who your candidate should be. Think about it. Your brand is very unique. You have a very unique culture. Well, here's where the confusion begins. Your salespeople that are representing your brand, two candidates, are also very unique. And they all sell differently. They all sell based upon the way in which they were taught how to sell, as opposed to learning how to sell based on who the candidate is. Because every candidate is also unique in their own right. Well, the Navigator eliminates the guesswork. We're going to show you that the Navigator will help you to connect the dots. And again, as I said, the old way of selling was it was all about how good your products or services are. But that's not true anymore. That's table stakes. You have to have a good product or service, otherwise the consumer is not going to purchase it or engage in it. Today, it's bottom up. The new method of selling is it's all about understanding who your operators are and how well you can connect with them and how well you're attracting the right profile. Well, I've always asked franchisors, well, if you take your current distribution system, franchisees, and you divide it, what's going to happen? Well, you know what happens? It's almost robotic. They all inevitably say, well, it's a third, a third, a third. A third are high performers, a third are mid performers, and a third are poor performers. Well, if that was true, think about it. That means 2/3 of their distribution system are underperformers. But we've proven scientifically that that's not even true. That's a myth. And look at the results that we've been able to scientifically proven. So here's a particular company in food service. And for their multi-unit operators, 26% were high performers, 26% were mid performers, and 48% in the red are poor performers. Here's a single unit operator, a service business that if I told you who it was, you would recognize it. 34% are high performers, 62% are mid, 4% are poor performers. Well, that's 66% of their distribution system that are underperformers. Here's how we do it. The first thing that we've done is we've taken behavior, human behavior, and we've divided it into 4 profiles. Now, a couple of things. One, the Navigator was developed and launched in the late 90s specifically for business and franchise ownership. So we haven't taken a personality profiling tool off the shelf and attempted to modify it and convert it to business and franchising. This was developed specifically from the ground up. And I'll share with you what the differences are between what the Navigator is and what personality profiles are. So the 4 profiles, and we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this because that's part of our training program, and we'll get into more detail as we move forward. But the accomplisher is all about leadership and drive. Do they have the drive to make things happen? The influencer is all about sales and communication. Do they have the ability to meet, greet, and exceed the customer's expectations? The associator is all about the people attributes. Are they people? Do they get along? Do they have a desire to be liked? Do they have a desire to form groups? And then the contributor is just that. It's all about contribution, leadership, and how can I enrich the lives of the people I come in contact with? Okay, so there's 4 profiles. Everybody has all 4 profiles at all times. Each one is as equally as important as the other. It's sort of like the cylinders in the engine underneath the hood of your automobile. There isn't one that's more important. They all have to be harmonious. And the same thing is true with the profiles. But what we've done is we've designed a system where we'll find out which is the dominant, because the dominant's what's going to drive that person, and which are the secondary or the subordinates, because that's sort of like the supporting cast in a play. So the dominant is what's important, and then the subordinates. Now, what's interesting is we didn't want some kind of an assessment that would take a half hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours to complete. Our assessment tool takes approximately 10 minutes or less to complete, and the results appear within 2 seconds. Now, the reason why we created this in the first place is that we wanted to be predictive. in the recruitment and the selection of franchise operators. I've been a franchisor. I have over 40 years experience in franchising. I would scratch my head and wonder if the person that we just sold a particular franchise to really was a good candidate. So I wanted to be predictive. We started researching the Navigator in the late 80s. We refined it, we tested it, and we launched it in the late 90s. So now, as a result of doing over 30,000 surveys, we know a lot about each of these profiles. We know what their strengths are. We know what their weaknesses are. We know what their styles are. We know what's going to turn them on. We know what's going to turn them off. So once we know the dominant and the subordinates, we know how to talk to them. We know who they are. So what happens is that in less than 10 minutes, the Navigator effectively identifies and quantifies an individual's skills. So it's not about a personality, and it's not a personality profile, because the truth is, it's not about personality. It's about, does somebody have the right stuff to operate your business? And the first thing is skills. And there's really only 3 skills to any business model. There's sales and marketing skills. Again, the ability to meet, greet, and exceed the customer's expectations. There's business administration and HR management skills, the ability to assemble and manage and motivate teams of people. And then there's product or there's technical skills, which is oftentimes the easiest to transfer to a candidate. Well, I can share with you, having worked with hundreds of companies all over the world, that one of the common mistakes many franchisors make is they expect their candidates to be good at all 3. That's not going to happen, because people who are good at all 3 don't buy franchises. And here's the difference between the Navigator and all of the other profiling tools that are out there. And they're all great tools, but here's the difference. The difference is we measure values. Everybody has their own value system. It's internal to each of us. It's our own internal belief system. And in reality, it becomes the operations manual on how we live our lives. And everybody has their own unique value system. It's developed as we're being raised, our business lives, our professional lives, personal lives. It's our own core set of rules. And really what happens is when a decision has to be made, whether it's to purchase something, whether it's to deal with conflict, whatever it might be, whether we realize it or not, we dig deep into our subconscious. We dig deep into our value system. We try to anchor it towards something that we've experienced in the past, positive or negative. And then the end result is we bring it back out. We make decisions. And those decisions results in behavior that's congruent with somebody's value system. So the Navigator, and what makes it very unique, is that it is a skills, values, and behavioral assessment tool and process that's been designed specifically from the bottom up for franchise and business ownership. And with the research that we've done and the interviews that we've done, we know out of the 4 profiles which skills they're actually good at. And we can know from a predictive basis which skills somebody's going to be good at. Well, it's a scientific and a proven system that once we develop a specific profile for your brand, and again, what happens is that this is no longer a generic tool. It then becomes specific to your particular brand. I'll show you how we do that. But now we know who your profile is, where to find them, how to communicate with them, how to attract them, and how to train and support them. So the first step is we want to actually benchmark. We want to go in and we want to administer our assessment tool to as many of your existing operators, managers, employees, even field support people. Now, because it takes less than 10 minutes and it's geared for a 4th grade vocabulary, we're currently averaging about 74% of a company's distribution system. Now, if you're a young brand and you don't have a lot of franchise operators, don't worry. we can still apply the tool because we've done over 30,000 surveys for over 150 different brands. What we want to do is learn about your business model and then go into the database and compare other profiles and develop a profile for you based on your particular business model. So the first step is we want to look at who your existing operators are. Now, some companies only look at the high performers, but that's actually going to give you a very skewed outcome. We want to look at the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to look at your high performers, your mid performers, and your poor performers. And what happens is that when somebody takes the survey, which takes less than 10 minutes to take, within a matter of 2 seconds, we're actually able to see what their scores are between 0 and 100%. Now, in this particular case, and by the way, these results appear in 2 seconds. So if you look at this profile, and this is simply for illustrative purposes, it's an 82% associator. It's a dominant associator. That means this person is a dominant people person. Their value system is they want to be liked. They like to be liked. They like dealing with people. Well, the subordinates or the secondaries is the contributor, which is leadership, and 78% accomplisher. And look how low the influencer is at 60%. So this is not the profile of a sales and marketing person. This is the profile, and we look at these combinations. This is a profile of a multi-unit operator, a team builder. So we want to look at which is the dominant, which are the subordinates, and we want to look at the combinations. And you're able to see this almost the way it looks right now within 2 seconds from the time somebody completes the assessment. Then what we do is once we're doing in the benchmarking, once we have all the surveys in that we're going to get in from your operators, we'll create a scorecard for you. And that scorecard is going to identify who took it, who participated, and it's going to have the Navigator results in the percentages. But we're going to darken that out because we don't want you to focus in on that. Now what we want you to do is using your own performance metrics. We want you to score them. Now, some of the companies, some of our clients use unit sales as a way of measuring performance. Some use obedience to the business model. Some use the ability to capture the culture of the company. Some of them use speed to market. And then what we want you to do is we want you to identify the length of time they've been in the system. And then you send the scorecard back to us. All of this data is then sent to a team of independent statisticians that do an entire statistical analysis of this data. And the end result is we can then show you who your high performers are and why, who your mid performers are and why, and who your poor performers are and why. Now, this is going to give you valuable information because, first of all, you don't ever want to bring anybody into the system that resembles the poor performers. And what we want to do is then focus in on attracting candidates that resemble the high performers. But here's something else, and this came from the clients. One of our clients said to us, okay, here's our mid-performers. Can you help us increase the performance of the mid-performers once you know their profile? And the answer is yes. We've had huge lifts in unit sales by understanding better who the mid-performers are and why, and establishing better and deeper connections with them through the information gained from the Navigator. So what happens then, and the way that we create your high performer profile, which is unique to your brand, is our statisticians will show us where, on the scale of 0 to 100%, the high performers score. So this becomes your sweet spot. This becomes your recommended scores. Now here's what's cool about the Navigator. All inbound candidates that are interested in your brand are asked to take the assessment. And generally it happens after the second phone call. And generally what happens is our clients say to the candidates, hey, listen, just as you're interested in learning if our brand is a good fit for you, We'd like to learn if you're a good fit for our brand, and we'd like you to take an assessment. It's not a test. There are no right or wrong answers, but the results have proven to be accurate in terms of compatibility with our business model. Excuse me. So the link is sent out to them. And oftentimes the recruitment people stay on the phone. And what happens is, once they complete the assessment, which is 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, within 2 seconds, you're now able to see how that candidate measures against your high performer profile. Now you can see in this particular case, the accomplisher is in there. It's in the sweet spot. It's not where we'd like it, which is mid to high. But look, the influencer's not there. And in this particular case, let's say it's a B2B business. This person does not have what it takes to make it happen. The associator score is good, and the contributor score is good. Now, what we've learned, what's really interesting is that the scores can be too high. So in other words, if an accomplisher scores way up here, they're way too entrepreneurial, and they're not going to fit well in a structured business environment like a franchise. Well, what that means is they're not going to follow rules. They're going to want to make the rules. And here you can see that in this particular case, the scores can be too low. The influencer score is too low. It's at 60%, which means they're really sales adverse. If it was up higher, they might be too manipulative. And interestingly enough, too narcissistic, because to them it's all about prestige and image, and they may not be able to execute the business model. If the associator scores are too high, they become incredibly needy. They need a lot of hand-holding, a lot of touchy-feely kind of servicing and trust building. And if they score very high as a contributor, the odds are they're not going to look for business opportunities. They're going to gravitate toward the sciences, the medical sciences. There'll be doctors, there'll be educators, nurses, and if it's really high, then they're really very societal, and they're into things like Save the Whales and Greenpeace. So here's how the Navigator works so that you can ensure that you're bringing the right people into the system. Your candidates take the assessment so that you can learn who they are and they can learn who they are. 90% of our clients share the output and the results in the personal development chart with the candidates. Now what this does, and we have the testimonials from many clients, is now it takes away the selling of a franchise into conversations about whether or not it's a good fit. Your candidates are instantly measured against your own unique high performer profile. It's not somebody else's profile. It's a profile specifically for your brand. You're able to get instant and valuable personal insights in terms of whether or not they are a good fit or not. Now, what this does is it allows for deeper connectivity with the candidates. It's a more collaborative kind of relationship. And most important, the caliber of the people that'll come into your system, into training, and then in the face of the customer delivering a product or service is much higher and much better. This is the missing link in franchising. See, the very things that cause success or failure in franchising has nothing to do with franchising. It has everything to do with the people that are delivering the product or the service to the end user. So, instantly, you're able to see how a candidate measures against your particular high performer profile. And you can see this within 2 seconds. Now, in terms of the candidate and what they see, we call it their own personal source code. And the reason is that just like how computer software is all very different from each other, so are people. Everybody's wired differently. And the personal source code shows you instantly who your candidates are. So from a personal development standpoint, they're able to get a snapshot of who they are within a matter of seconds. Now here's what's very interesting. About 4.5 years ago, one of our clients, happens to be Ace Hardware, said to us, "Wow, this stuff is great. We're learning a lot about who our candidates are and whether or not they fit. But we want to go deeper. We want to go deeper into what makes that person tick. so that we can get higher in our ability to be predictive. So they partially funded what we call a personal development chart. And what the personal development chart takes and does is it takes the data of how somebody scores in relationship to the high performer profile and then drills down into 9 critical categories related to operating the business: entrepreneurship, leadership, salesmanship, accounting acumen, customer service, operational efficiencies, delegation, time management, and people development. So it actually goes down the 9 categories across the 4 profiles, identifies if it's a strength or a weakness, and identifies the style. And then we take it one step further. If something is a particular weakness in an individual, we even provide you with suggestions on how these people should be coached, supervised, trained to increase their performance and increase the connectivity that you have with them. So you can choose to either have just the personal chart that comes in, which is recruitment, and the end result of this particular exercise is that we're able to show recruitment within a matter of seconds: green light, yellow light, red light. Is this a good candidate, a high potential, an acceptable potential, or a caution potential? The people that best utilize this information is your operations, your training, and your field support people. Because think about it, it normally takes days, weeks, months to learn how to coach somebody, where now all of a sudden you've got this information within a matter of 2 seconds. So it really doesn't matter your lead generation. I mean, you could be doing things traditionally through print. You could have relationship sales where you're using Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or social media. It doesn't really matter. What we want to do is we want to monetize from our recruitment efforts. And this is the missing link, because this is connection selling. We'll actually show you how to communicate. And in a lot of cases, our clients even have us develop the websites, the recruitment material that engages in connection selling so that we're targeting the right profile. So the Navigator's not a profile or just an assessment process. It's an entire marketing and strategy process that once we know your profile, we know who they are, where to find them, how to communicate with them, how to attract them, and then how to train and support them. And we've got wonderful training programs, not only for your recruitment people, but also for operations training and field support people. So once we know the profile, we'll look at your attraction strategy to see whether or not you are attracting the right people. They need to be screened against your own profile, and that ensures that the candidates that you're talking to, the people that you're spending your valuable time, energy, effort, resources, and money, are the right candidates. So here's how the Navigator works in a snapshot. The first step is benchmarking. We want to know what differentiates your high, mid, and low performers, whether employees in company-owned stores or franchise operators. We'll then compare and contrast your marketing material to ensure that you're using the right words, the right colors, and the right tonality to attract your profile. We have incredible training programs that will transfer the Navigator to you, and we can develop materials, and then we can roll the program out. So what the Navigator does, really simply, is it takes your candidate's profile, it takes your high performer profile, connects the dots, and enables you to better understand which words, which topics, and the tonality that's going to establish deeper relationships and deeper connections with your candidates. Now here's what happens when the wrong candidates come in. This happens to be a service-oriented business. This represents, and this was developed by the Vice President of Business Development and Operations. She went back in and she analyzed the 23 franchisees that had left the system, and look, they don't even come close to the profile. And then she went in and she compared the 23 high performers that are in the system, and look, they're right in the sweet spot. So, think architecture. Most of the tools that are out there don't go deep enough. We wanted something that was going to go far deeper than what would give you the foundation for a 1 or 2 story building. So think architecture. We wanted to develop a high rise. And in order to develop a high rise and be very predictive, we needed to go deeper. And we were able to successfully do that. And when we launched the Navigator in 1997. So the bottom line is, franchising is all about people doing business with people. Having the right people is what makes franchising work. Not having the right legal documents, because at that point, when there is conflict, it doesn't matter about your legal documents. The relationship has soured. And I can share with you that having done this for 20 years, none of our clients are in major conflict or lawsuits with their franchise operators. We have 3 different assessments. We've done over 30,000 surveys of business owners, entrepreneurs, wannapreneurs, sales professionals, and employees. And the best part is it's fully automated. It takes all of the guesswork out of the process. It does the work for you. It does all the heavy lifting for you. Well, if you like what you see in this particular video, call us. Call us for a demo. We'll actually take you online and show you how our clients are using the Franchise Navigator as a predictable science to grow their distribution systems with the right people. Thank you for watching.